Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm very excited for today's chat because today I'm talking to somebody who has not only transformed their health through the benefits of finding keto and eating real food, but has also taken the bruising and the crashes of failure in both personal and work life and transformed those into success and happiness. My guest today is Kev Mason, also known as Keto Kev. He's ex-army, ex-drinker, ex-rebel rouser, who has turned his life into a dynamic sphere of creative energy, and is now helping others to find their way to health and well-being. Kev is a family man, a chef, a health coach, and the creator of his own four-pillar strategy of health and well-being, which helps and supports those looking to make the changes in their own lives that can turn around their health outcomes. And I'm hoping he's going to share some of those strategies with us today. Kev, welcome to my channel, and thank you so much for chatting with me today. How are you?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for inviting me on. Yeah, I'm doing really good today. Thank you very much.
Good, brilliant. So let's get started because there's a lot I want to talk with you about. So just for those people who don't know your backstory, you are from the UK, but you're now based in Germany. So how did you come to make that move to living in Germany?
Well, I was in the army, and after I finished I finished my basic course to become a recovery mechanic, we were all looking at postings on where to go, and I was like, I just want to get out and just be like kind of away from everyone and experience some travel. And I knew that everyone was based in, or loads of people were based in Germany. And actually, my sister is married to a soldier, and she was based in Germany as well. So I just wrote down on the sheet that I wanted to go to Germany, and that's it. They sent me out there. So that's how I ended up here.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And how did you find army life?
I loved it. I mean, looking back at it now, it was fantastic. Being in the army back then, when I was in there, was one of the best things. You know, we were well respected. We were looked upon. You know, the British Army were fantastic from the outside. Although when you get inside, as we'll probably talk about, it wasn't as good as what it looks like from the outside. We were not the fittest, the most elite people. But
Oh.
camaraderie was fantastic. The guys were brilliant. The travel was good. And all in all, I would say, looking back, it was a brilliant 13 years of my life.
And I think that maybe the discipline that you learnt in the army, that the army instilled in you, perhaps that was one of the benefits that helped you a little bit later on when you were having those struggles. Do you think so?
Yeah, I think so. So when I was in the army, I wasn't as disciplined as what I should have been, obviously, because I gained too much weight and I was a massive drinker. But that was kind of the culture that we were in, the drinking culture.
Right.
But once I left, it was like, you know, I took a look at my life and I realized that if I can do this, in the
Yeah.
army, if I can be here, then I have the ability to do it. And so that's
So,
why I've
so
done it.
yeah, so just going back to what you were talking about just then, which is the food, generally the food that you eat in the army and the culture. Can you go into a little bit more detail about that and just sort of let us know, the food that was mainly being served up and as I say, the sort of general culture as to drinking and rebel rousing, maybe.
Yeah, no worries. I'll start with the alcohol first. So when you go to the recruiting office and you watch the videos to join the army, there's always a bit in the video, or there was, you know, back in 2000s, early 2000s, there was a video of what you do, and then there was like the culture of the army, and it was people playing pool and drinking pints of beer and stuff like that. And literally after I'd done my training, so I was in the UK for 2 years. I had an accident due to alcohol. And then so my course got put back. And once I finally did my course, I mean, we were all big drinkers. My first day in Germany, literally my first day was a Wednesday, and I arrived to my regiment and they were all drinking. It was a Wednesday afternoon. They were having a sport day or like a family day or something. And I arrived and it was like the first thing was, welcome to Germany. There's a can of beer. You know, enjoy it. And so the whole drinking culture is really bad. Well, it was really bad. I haven't been in the army for 10 years, so it's a little bit, it might have changed a little bit. From what I see from the guys that I'm still in contact with, it's still exactly the same. All the way up to the colonel of the regiment would come into the bar on a Friday afternoon, say hello to everybody. You know, Christmas dinner was always when we would have our regimental dinner, like the Christmas lunch. It was always the officers and the sergeants giving out cans of beer and, you know what I mean? So it's like very, very drink orientated in your downtime. And if you didn't drink alcohol, then, you know, you were ridiculed for it. So it was like you almost had to do it. The peer pressure was there. And as for the food was absolutely diabolical. And I know that it still is diabolical. They've got no idea about nutrition. They've got no idea about healthy eating. And they are breeding some of the most unhealthy people on the entire planet, or definitely in the UK.
Wow.
It's so bad. You know, even down to when you're overweight, they just look at you and they go, "You're not doing enough sport. Go and do some more fitness." They put you on remedial sport, but that's not the answer. You know, sport is important, yes, but you need to look at the nutrition. And they didn't have anybody that was checking your diet. They didn't say, you know, you're overweight, you need to start thinking about eating, you know, even if you are, you know, in this whole, you need to eat your 5 a day kind of stuff. So there was no one there. And when you went to the cookhouse at lunchtime, the food was, you know, like, it was slop, it was burgers, it was chips, lasagna, pasta, all of these kinds of really high carbohydrate, highly processed foods as well. And cooked in seed oils, loads of gluten involved in everything. And then at the end of it, there's like a couple of yogurts, a couple of, you know, bowls of fruit, moldy banana, that kind of stuff.
Oh my
So
goodness.
it's really bad.
It sounds like an absolute mental health and physical health nightmare, really.
Yeah,
And and it's so strange because when I think of armed forces, I think of people who are adventurers, super fit, climbing mountains, and
yeah,
all this sort of thing. And yet, it's so strange because, as you say, when you're actually in that environment, it's very different. And it must be so hard to try and be anything else because you say that's just the way that the whole culture is. And of course, it's natural for a human being to want to belong to a
yeah,
particular group. So you feel that you have to conform, even if deep down you don't necessarily want to. And even if you weren't that kind of person when you first started out, you have to become like that in order to, I suppose, get through each day, really.
yeah. I mean, it's not like I've painted a really bad picture. Not everyone was like this. So, you know, the majority of the people, they all ate rubbish. I mean, everyone ate rubbish food. You would go
Mm,
into the Nafi, which is the like the local shop based in here in Germany. It's like a spa type thing, like you've got in the UK, but Tesco's, and you can just imagine what these shops are like over
yeah.
here, because they're
Mm,
exactly the same as they are in the UK now. Nothing's changed. It's just a smaller shop, you know, with the Greg's style kind of pasties available and things like that. And, you know, the fruit juices, you know, like the squash, the crisps, the chocolate bars. It was very like that kind of culture. And it's just, now we know, you know, more about it. But even
mm,
back in 2003, when I came to Germany, we should have known better anyway.
yeah,
So although people were still like overtraining and staying fit, some people were slipping through those gaps. They weren't training to out train the diet. Even though you can't out train a bad diet, it catches up with you at the end.
it does.
I've got quite a few. I've got like a plethora of clients at the moment that are all ex-forces that I've worked with, and they've gone from being fit like I am now to being fat like I was then. And it's like they've come to me and they were like, "I've seen what you've done. I need your help. Like, you know what I was like in the army." And I was like, "You have to, you know," even some of my old bosses have come to me and I've said, "Right then, boss, now it's time for me to tell you what to do."
That sounds like it is good fun, great fun to be able to turn the tables a bit.
It was good payback. It was good payback. Yeah.
Very good. So I just want to touch on now when you came out of the army, and I know you went through a really low time, a really bad
Yeah.
time, and I want you to just touch on that a little bit because I really want people to be able to grasp how you really transformed your entire life, really, from such an incredibly low point where you essentially almost lost everything,
Yeah.
um, up to really, being a completely different person in so many ways. So can you just touch on those points, please?
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I, we bought a house in her hometown in Osnabrück, which is where we still live now. And it's actually it was an ex-army house. So we bought it when I was still in the army, so that my children could continue to go to a German school
Mm.
because of moving around a lot. Like moving around in the army I was in, we move every 3 or 4 years. So I wanted a stable base, and also my wife wanted to go to university and finish studying. So we bought a house, and then when I left the army, because I was in a German culture, but I couldn't speak much German because everyone around me would always say, "Oh, can you speak English to me so that I can learn English more?" And then all of a sudden, when I left the army, it was like, "Oh, you should be able to speak German by now." So I was very much alone, even though all of my so-called around me friends, who were Germans, they kind of flipped and was like, "We need to speak German." And I felt very lost and lonely without the army camaraderie, the kind of sense of humor that I missed in the army was a little bit, because we have a very unique sense of humor in the
Yeah.
army. We
I'm
pick on
sure.
each other in a way that civilians wouldn't understand, and especially the German culture. So I didn't fit in around with my friends anymore around the Germans, because I was trying to compensate and kind of mix it up. So I became very lonely and very depressed. And when you leave the army after more than 12 years, you get like a half pension, like a lump sum payout. So I think it was something around the region of about 12,000, 13,000 euros that I got paid out. And this is literally no word of a lie. Most of it went on alcohol. I just sat there depressed with no job, because I had to, my qualifications were not fully recognized in Germany for what I wanted to do, like cranes and winches and stuff, inspections. I took the wrong courses when when I was leaving the army. I took a language course instead of taking like conversion courses, and I was very misguided and misjudged what it was going to be like. And then my wife was at university all day, and I was kind of looking after the children, and then she would come back and I would start drinking. And I was very much alone, very much alone. And so I would take a trip to the shop in the afternoon, and I would pick up a crate of beer, and it would be like the cheapest beer that you could possibly get your hands on. So I could drink the whole crate, and I would drink like a whole crate of beer in a day or in a night. And, it was terrible. And even when I went and found paleo, because this all stems back, and I say this all the time, I would never be where I am now if it wouldn't have been for my wife. She was listening to Mark Sisson's podcast or something to do with Mark Sisson, found paleo, and she said, "I'm going to try this for 30 days and see how I feel." And I was like, "No way, come on, I like my ciabatta with bacon and lettuce and all this kind of stuff." I said, "You're on your own. Like, no way." And at this point, I was like 130 kilos, and I was still drinking. So I would go out most nights and waste my money. And then I ended up on, working credits, like working allowance. So I would still get money from the government, like the German government, and I was still drinking. And I was very, very much, family life was getting hit by it, and everything was getting worse. So she tried this paleo, and I was like, "No, not interested." And then one day I looked at her, and we had like mirrors in the dressing room, in the room, and I looked at her and I just thought, wow, she doesn't even need to lose weight, and she's lost a little bit of weight. She looks stunning. And I was like, and I looked down and I was like looking in the mirror, and I was thinking, this can't be what I'm meant to be. This can't be my life. And I said to her, I said, "Kat, what about this paleo then? Tell me about it." And so I've been out of the army for around about 6 months or a year by then. So it's about 9 years ago. And she said, just do this and this and this for 30 days and see how you feel. And almost instantly, I felt better. Like within days of going off grains and sugars and seed oils, I felt brilliant. And my health issues started to change. But I was still drinking alcohol because I had a serious problem. So it was getting less and less and less. But, nonetheless, it was still there. And it was wine, gluten-free beer as well was creeping in, tequila, all these kinds of things, and gin. And so it was still there. So although I was losing weight and feeling good, I wasn't optimal, and I was still binge drinking on the weekends as well. And so it would get less in the week. And then I started working as a truck driver, so I couldn't drink because I was driving away all the week. But then when I would come back and hit it at the weekend, and it was still there. And it was 5 years ago now. About 7 years ago, I started looking into keto. But again, I was still drinking because I was drinking these keto-friendly alcohols. And, the problems were still there, and I was still partying some weekends. And, although I thought I was doing keto properly, I wasn't because I was drinking. And then, like I said, about 5 years ago, I had a birthday party, and, that's when it really hit the fan. And I was drinking all night and drinking into the morning. I passed out halfway up the stairs and stayed there. Then, in the morning when we were clearing up, I was carried on drinking. Sunday morning, carried on drinking and drinking whatever was left over in the bottles as I was tidying up or whatever, the wine and that. And I fell asleep on the sofa, and my wife came downstairs and she was like, "What are you doing? Like, what is going on?" And I had a bottle of a tequila beer in my hand whilst I was asleep on the sofa. And the instantaneous thing to do for me was lie and say, "I'm just tidying up." It wasn't me, even though I was asleep. She woke me up. It was so ridiculous. And she was like, "No, that's it. I can't do this anymore." And she said, "I've got to go and pick up Heidi, who's my daughter, from judo. When I come back, we'll talk about this." And I was like, "No, you can't go now." I was completely drunk. You can't go. And I ran out to the front and I sat on the bonnet of my car, and I was like, "You can't go. We can't leave like this. We need to talk." And I leaned back, and the windscreen broke. Popped and cracked the windscreen. And she was like, "What is going on? Like, what are you doing? Like, this is out of control." She said, "I can't go now. I can't drive this car. It's got a smashed windscreen. I need to drive, to get her. You need to deal with this." So I rang up my mate and I said to him, "Andre, I need your help. No questions. Be here 10 minutes with your car." And he said, "Yeah, of course, anything for you." So he came, he picked me up. I said, "Right, you've got to go in and get her. I'm too drunk to do this. I can't be seen. It's embarrassing." And when I came back, my bags were packed. And she was like, "That's it. We're done. Finished. I can't take this anymore. You've pushed me too far. This is the third time you've gone back to drink. And it's not happening anymore." And she kicked me out. So I slept in the woods in a hammock that night. Well, actually, what I did was I went to the closest bar, and I sat in the bar and with a glass of water, and I just sat there thinking about what the hell I've done with my life and how it got this bad. And so I sat there, contemplated, and I put a hammock up in the woods behind the house. Then I went in at 5 a.m, very humble, and said, "I want to sort this out." And she said, "No, not anymore. You chose alcohol over your family, and that's it. We're done." And I was heartbroken, and didn't know what to do. So I spent the day thinking what we're going to do. She went to work, the children went to school, and I had no idea. And she came back and she said, "I've had time to think about it, and it's just not going to work. This is it for me. I can't go back to this lifestyle of you drinking and acting out like this and doing these things. So you need to get the car fixed." And I said, "Look, just give me a little bit of time and have some faith in me, and I'll quit drinking, and that'll be it for good." And I said, "I've got nowhere to go. please let me sleep in the roof, which wasn't converted or anything like that. It was just the attic with stairs going up to it. And there was one plug socket up there. If I know there wasn't a plug socket, I had to run a cable. I had no internet up there because the internet didn't reach. So I would take, so I bought some books from the people that I was following at the time, and I read some books. I downloaded some books, some self-help books, and it took me 5 months. But after 5 months of living there and turning my life around and starting the groups that I did and researching how I can fix myself and heal what I was doing, and then heal my family, then 5 months later, she finally took me back, and it was a hard struggle. It was hard, and then I haven't touched a drop of alcohol since.
That's brilliant.
Well, actually, that's not entirely the truth. So if I have a Christmas dinner, we add some red wine to it, but we cook it off. So it's, like that's, but that doesn't, I don't count that.
I think that's allowed.
So yes.
I think that's definitely allowed. Yeah, definitely.
I've gone, oh, that doesn't even smell nice. Like, so friends have come over and I've said, let me smell it for a second. And I've gone, oh no, it smells disgusting. How can you drink that?
But it is amazing, I think, when you have come out of something like that. But and when you're in it, you just don't realize, you don't appreciate how other people see you and how your actions have such an effect on the people around you, the people that you care for, the people that you've always cared for. But yeah, you just don't really, and it's not even a case of being selfish. It's just a case of just being what feels normal, and then it's having to change and finding those ways to change, to heal yourself, to become a different person, so that you can get the life back that you really wanted. So just those months that you spent sort of up in the attic and reading and trying to change your life, were there any books that you read there that were that particularly helped you, do you think, or any articles maybe?
It wasn't so much the book. I was very connected to a guy that I found on Instagram. Well, actually, I found him on a YouTube channel, and his name is Seth Kaufman. He's from Florida, and he's a yoga instructor. But he's changed he was a yoga instructor. Now he's kind of a mindfulness trainer and life coach. And prior to this incident, I thought I'd seen him on a program called Fit to Fat to Fit, which was an American program done by a guy called Drew Manning, who I've also respected in the world of keto as well. And he basically, what Drew did to himself was gained weight over 6 months so he could lose weight again to help people lose weight. And then he made a TV program about it. And I found Seth on this program, and Seth gained like 50 pounds or whatever it is to whatever it was to then help his client lose weight for the show. And I saw this guy on the show, and I was like, wow, that's from yoga. This guy looks amazing. I thought yoga was for women. This big kind of rough guy doesn't want to do yoga, because it's for women, sorry to say. And I was like, I've got to talk to this guy and find out why. So Seth has been there since it all happened, and he was being my kind of go-to I would even say counselor. He's been through all the trials and tribulations, and I've never met this guy face to face. And we keep on threatening that we're gonna, travel across the pond. But he was my main inspiration. Him and obviously Kat, my wife, and the family were the inspiration. But he was the one that was there, giving me tips and like the messages, and so there wasn't someone specific apart from him, really. It was just things that I read online about trying to get better. And Drew as well, I read his story because he actually had he's very open about it. He had a porn addiction, and he managed to overcome this. So I thought, well, that's kind of a similar thing. So how did he get over his addictions? So we looked at it as well. I looked at what he did and just kind of like reflected on what these guys were doing. And yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I always believe that as long as we have a breath inside of us, there is hope that we can build change, that we can make change. And I think all it needs perhaps sometimes is just one person
Yeah,
to get that message across to you that you can believe in yourself, that you can change. And that can be the catalyst, that little seed that sort of sets in your mind and that builds into something so much greater. And sometimes it
yeah,
can just be one person, one message that they're maybe putting out there. But it sounds like this guy, he was so helpful for you, and that's wonderful that you came
yeah,
across him. And also I feel that that when I'm just looking at, because we will get into the four pillars, this system, this strategy system that you've set up, and but I feel like you've kind of brought that whole mindfulness and meditation thing into that, because you obviously
yeah,
realize how important that is for mental health. Because keto, I always feel that when you start keto and you start it for whatever reason, I mean, I just started it because I was very overweight, I had a lot of underlying health conditions, and I was just in constant pain, just constant chronic pain. And whilst I never believed that I could lose weight, or, you know, not at that stage anyway, lose any weight or look any different, I just wanted to be in less pain.
yeah,
But once you start keto, once you get into it, and the more you realize, actually, you know what, this can have an effect on my whole life,
yeah,
not just that one area of my life that I thought I might be able to change, but every single aspect of my life. And I think once you've grasped that, once you just never want to let it go, do you? Once you've
yeah,
felt what it's like to have a more balanced mental health, a better physical health, you never want to let go of that. No, and
yeah.
it's
That's right.
and it's wonderful. And I love to hear these stories about how people have come from the very lowest points in their life, when
Yeah,
they believed that was it. They didn't know how they were going to. Something always happens, something always comes into their life that helps them to believe that they can make those changes, that they can
yeah,
become something better than they believe they are at that moment in time. So it's so wonderful that you found that guy, and
yeah,
that he helped you. And it's so lovely, I find, that you're doing your bit, you're passing that on now, aren't you? Because you're helping other
yeah,
people. And so it's almost come full circle, really, which I think is a fantastic thing. It's wonderful.
yeah.
um so when did you first move from like paleo to keto? Or was it a conscious thing, or was it just something that just happened?
Yeah, so when I found the guy, so before, like I said, I was still drinking. So even though I was doing this keto kind of diet, it wasn't exactly what I would say keto is now. So I was doing paleo via Mark Sisson's kind of guidelines, and then I saw Drew Manning doing the keto, and I was like, well, wait a minute. So Drew like drinks butter for breakfast and eats loads of bacon and then loses more weight and feels more focused. And I'm like, and I said to Kat, I was like, this sounds really good. Like more butter and bacon is delicious. So I've got to try this. So I went down this. That's what it was. I mean, he started doing keto, and well, I found him, and yeah, I was like, yeah, this has got to be good. This has got to be tasty. So I kind of started ditching all of the other things that Mark was having, like the fruit and things like that, which is still paleo, and kind of supplementing with way more fat. And I had no idea what I was doing. So I was just going off of kind of what he was eating, styles of things. I wasn't measuring. I knew what macros were anyway, but I wasn't really tracking macros, but I was way overeating on fat. So I started to gain weight, and I was like, this is wrong. Like how does that work? He's like doing these things, and we decided that maybe it was because of these macros, and I was like, right, macros. Let's kind of research this properly and find out what macros were. So this was about a year before I stopped drinking, and my wife is. You'll notice that the reoccurring theme here is my wife. She keeps on. She's my lifeline, kind of thing. So she built this macro calculator. She's very clever, very good with maths. She's an engineer now, but she was like, right, if we work out that you need to lose so much weight and you need to do it this and this and this, we will take a little bit of body fat from you, we will take a little bit of this, so you have to eat this and this, and typed out a load of numbers on an Excel spreadsheet, and she was like, right, done. That's how you, and then I started eating the numbers that she calculated for me. And I was like, you're a genius. How have you managed to do this? Like, how have you built a macro calculator way better than what you would get on the internet? Like, you type in the numbers yourself. And she said, well, you need to take in these factors. And I was like, why are you not a health coach? Why are you an engineer? Why are you not doing this? So she's phenomenal. She knows even more about the topic than I do, keto and carnivore. And so we bounce off each other all the time. So then I started doing the macros, and it started falling off and it started working. And that's kind of how keto started, because then I realized how it should be, rather than just like, because I was taking into consideration as well what kind of sport I was doing and how much protein I needed, how much fat I needed to lose body fat as well, because those are really the key aspects in it.
Absolutely.
And then it was just research after research after research. And yeah, then I kind of got into it that way. That's how keto kind of started.
Good, brilliant. And at what point did you feel like you could let go of the alcohol? Because it had obviously been a real crutch for you, hadn't it? But there must have been a point where keto became such an important part of your life, and where you were getting your family life back again, that you felt you didn't need the alcohol. So how did that happen?
Well, it was after the incident of my birthday that I realized that my children and obviously my wife were more important than the substance to try and get out of, because I wasn't coaching or anything like that before the incident. I wasn't in any Facebook groups. I wasn't doing anything with anyone. And so I had really bad jobs. I worked as a truck driver. I worked in a factory that would build agricultural machines, and I was bringing parts from place to place and forklift work and stuff like that. And I was just thinking to myself, this is not what I want from my life. And then when I started realizing that I started learning about keto, and I actually had taken all of this knowledge on. And then obviously I stopped drinking and I was looking into it more. It was about 6 months after I stopped drinking, I took over I joined a Facebook group, and it had about 300 or 400 people in it. And I just started answering these questions because people were asking these questions. And I kind of realized, so this is about 4 years ago now, 4.5 years ago. Then I realized that, wow, this is something that I know a lot of. This topic is really comes easy to me. It's there. So that's how I realized that this is what I wanted to do for a job. But alcohol was never anything that I thought about starting up again, because I knew that I couldn't live without my family. I couldn't not have my family. So it was almost instantaneous on that part that she kicked me out, where it had never gone that far before. So within hours of her asking, telling me to leave, and the looks on my children's faces, and having to walk out that door, it was heartbreaking. And the look on her face, it was heartbreaking. And everything that we built together, I couldn't jeopardize that with drinking any. And it was just, it meant, at that point in time, it meant nothing to me anymore. And it was always something that I used as an escape. If we went to barbecues or something, I would always be the kind of grumpy one sitting in the corner, no interest in anyone else drinking. And it was always something that I used as a crutch, as to escape. And it was, like I said, it was instantaneous at that point in time when I realized that I don't need this anymore to make myself feel better. This is making me feel better. My family made me feel better. that was the drive behind everything. And that's when I started to realize, I've got to get my life back on track and do something for these guys rather than doing it for myself.
Yes, yes. So rather than being quite sort of inward facing, you were beginning then to become more outward facing, really,
Yeah,
which then led into you joining the Facebook groups and
yeah.
starting to help people that way, starting to take a real interest in, and I suppose from there it just grew, did it?
It spiraled, yeah, it just spiraled out of control. And I ended up with the group. I ended up taking over the group because the
Mm.
admin was like, who are you and where do you know this stuff from? Like, she started the group for like 20 of her friends that wanted, or 10 of her friends that wanted to do it together, and then it just kind of snowballed to 500. And she said, I can't do this. Like, and my wife was like, you're really good at this, like, wow, kind of thing. You know this stuff. And so we were learning together. And the group ended up eventually with around 16,000 people in it. But we've archived the group now because a lot of people during COVID decided that it wasn't for them, and there's almost 10,000 inactive members in that group.
Mm.
And I wonder where all these people have disappeared to. But then we started a new group after COVID, and we're up to 3,000 now anyway. And these people that I'm working with now, these 3,000, they want to do it. And I feel like a lot of people, they join the group, they mute the group, and it's kind of like, I don't like the way he does it, I'm just gonna sit back, and then they disappear off of the group. And so it just spiraled and went bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's it, really.
And I think it must be wonderful to work with people who do want to make those changes, who are finding keto maybe for the first time, or maybe they're trying it for the second or third time, because for some people it doesn't always work first time. And
Yeah,
and do you find people in your keto group who want to do carnivore, who are maybe more interested in really
yeah.
focusing on the protein side of things?
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that my wife switched to as well. She switched to carnivore, and then even for a period of time, she was doing raw carnivore as well. And we kind of dabble, like between us both, we dabble between raw carnivore, keto, and then sometimes we will have those little paleo things as well, those paleo treats. Like sometimes my son, he's 9, and he goes, "Are you picking up a banana? That's not keto." And I'm like, it's fine. I'm not keto today because I don't need to lose any more weight. I'm really happy with my fitness level. My body at the moment is fantastic. So I will and I always say to everybody in the group, if you're going to have something, if you're going to cheat on keto, then cheat with paleo. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Don't go and eat junk.
exactly. Yeah.
Have a mango or a banana or something.
Yes.
There are quite a few people that do carnivore. So I support carnivore to paleo, but mostly it's a keto group.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
there are people like one of the moderators from my group. She does really badly on plants, so she sticks with just carnivore. And that's
Yeah.
fine.
And I think this is the thing. I think it's such an individual way of eating that
Yeah,
as long as you're coming at it from a health perspective, and focusing on getting better metabolic health, then you can't really go wrong, because then you find out what works best for you. For some people,
yeah,
low carb or keto or carnivore, and people change. One year it might be low carb, the next year it might be carnivore, the next year it might be keto,
yeah,
but they're always approaching it from this same point of view of wanting to improve and optimize their metabolic health. And I think as long as
yeah,
you keep that in focus, that is all that matters, really. And then you
yeah.
just
It's
you,
all about that.
I mean, what I don't agree with is this thing where you go, sort of like, oh, like dirty keto and whatever it's called. I mean, I find and I find it sort of, it kind of irritates me, really, because it's constantly sort of eating away at the edges, really, isn't it? And you think, well, no, because when you're saying that, you're not actually you're not actually doing it. So, why are
Yeah,
you, why don't you just say, look, I'm just actually not really doing keto now? Why don't you just say that?
yeah, exactly. I totally agree with that, and I'll be very careful what I say on someone else's YouTube channel. But there are companies out there that I absolutely despise for what they're producing and putting a name on it as keto as well. And on my channel, I will out those companies, not a problem. And I will go toe to toe with them, and I will say, if you're adding gluten to your products, then you are not 100% keto. They'll come back and they'll say gluten is a protein, but it's not. Then I come back and say it's indigestible. It's like glue, because that's actually where the word comes from in Latin. It's completely damaging to the brain and the gut microbiome. And if you're going on a
Absolutely.
ketogenic diet, you're doing it. You should be doing it keto for health. That's why this whole keto for health, or the keto health that I say, comes out with as well. And there has to be guidelines. There can't be blurred lines. There has to be strict regimental barriers, and say, once you step over that line, you are not keto. There's no such thing as dirty keto. There's no such thing as lazy
Lazy
keto.
keto.
You are either in ketosis, eating healthy foods,
Mm,
you are in ketosis, but you're eating junk, because you can still be in ketosis and still be on a high carbohydrate diet. There's many
yeah.
people that do it. They just do fasting for 72 hours or something like that, and then they go and divulge on crap,
Yeah.
but they're still in ketosis. But that
Mm.
doesn't mean that you're on a ketogenic diet, so to speak.
Exactly, exactly. And surely the emphasis is just simply on real food,
Yeah,
because as long as you're eating real food, then you are going to have both feet over on the right side, on the keto side. And
yeah,
and really I think almost that's almost one way that a lot of people find it so difficult to go keto, because now we're so far into, or the modern Western diet is so far into the processed food, the high
yeah,
carbohydrates. We're so far onto that side that just moving towards keto seems like, oh well, this can't possibly work, because it's so different, it's too different, it couldn't possibly work. And it's getting people to change that mindset. And I think dirty keto, lazy keto is people who haven't yet made the full mental, because
yeah,
it's almost, I always say it's easy to eat keto, but it's very difficult to think keto. It's a
yeah, yeah,
the most difficult part of going keto is the whole mindset side of it, because anybody can put a plate of real food in front of you and you can eat it, but unless you have that mindset that puts you on the right side of food, you are not going to be a keto person. And
yeah,
and, and I don't mean that in a tribal way, like you're either this or you're that. But for people that want to make a change, understanding that it is a change of mindset that is really what is going to move you forwards and make the changes, make the transformation that you really want. It's not just
yeah,
about the food. It's definitely from a mindset point of view.
yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to think. I mean, I would possibly go so far as to say, if you can't eat a certain food raw, then I'm trying to think as if you should actually eat it. So without touching it, I know that vegetables are kind of all man-made anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like, no
Yeah.
vegetables, pretty much no vegetables that we have now exist in nature.
No.
Animals exist in nature. I know that we've bred pigs from boar, so we've domesticated them and things like that. But animals in general, you can eat wild animals. You can go and eat a deer. You can go and eat, even so far as to say you can eat a bear or a lion if you need to. But you can eat animals in their purest form. But vegetables are man-made. I don't have a drama with vegetables, like I said. But if you can eat, I mean, you can eat broccoli raw. It's fine. You can eat it raw. Cauliflower, you can eat raw. Carrots, things like that. Even though, I would say, like, potatoes, you wouldn't eat raw. So, but although I would even say, if you want to eat a potato, then you are much better eating a potato than you are eating kind of this processed rubbish, Pringles and things like that. If you've got this urge to eat a baked potato and you're doing keto as well, then, and I might get in trouble with my followers for saying this. eat a baked potato over a box of Pringles, if that's what, it is a whole food. It is a whole food. You wouldn't eat it raw, but it's a
Mm,
whole food
mm.
at the end of the day. So how much damage can a potato really cause you once every 3 months? Do you know what I mean? For an example, over all the other rubbish that
Definitely, yeah,
that you've
yeah.
eaten. And
And I do think it is that process of moving away
yeah,
from where you currently are. So the worst place to be is just eating processed food
yeah,
all the time. That is the very worst place to be. And anything that you can do that moves away from that is
yeah,
going to be a benefit to your health, even if it is potatoes or,
yeah,
whatever it might be. And I mean, one of the ways that I started out was by taking whatever I was eating as a processed food and just making it
yeah,
from the ingredients. So maybe it was potatoes, maybe it was, whatever, if it was a pizza, but actually making that from the ingredients. So understanding what was actually going into the food that I was making. And
yeah,
you can't help but begin to get a change of mindset from there. And saying to yourself, look, I never want to go back to just eating this processed food crap, because the more you get away from that, the more you realize how much better you can feel and how much of an impact just eating real food can have. And I think for some people it does have to be that little ant tiny little ant steps,
yeah,
because they're maybe so they've become so used to the processed way of eating.
yes.
Yeah, so how do you find that in your keto group? Are people ready to, you were saying that people wanted to make the change, but are people ready to make those changes? Where are people coming from? Are they coming from a very processed food background?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the people, they jump straight into keto from eating like the standard British diet, or whatever you call it, the SAD or the standard American diet.
Yes.
And that's really hard. I mean, I would never expect someone, for example, to go from one end of the spectrum, being a fruitarian or a raw carnivore, to
Mm,
jump all the way, sorry, a raw vegan, to jump all
vegan.
the way to being a raw carnivore.
Yeah.
So you've got to take those steps. And I think that's what you said about the process of you make things from scratch as well. I think what I found easy to take those steps was, even when I was in the army, me and my wife, we would make our own bread. And even we went so far as we had a grinding machine, and we would get the grain and grind it ourselves, because that was also fun. It was limited ingredients. At the time, we were using like what we thought was healthy, and they were all organic as well. So there were those steps going forward. And many people join the group, and I always make a post every month or every couple of weeks and say, right, what stages are people at?
Mm.
Are you keto? Are you carnivore? Are you, like a few years into it and stuff like that? And I think it's important to kind of connect with everybody in the group every now and then and ask, how's it going? Are you, because if they sit in silence, then sometimes they go back. So there is like a really big array of people in there, all the way from a couple of people on paleo, all the way up to carnivores. So, but most people come from a processed food background of pasta, pizzas, ready meals. A lot of it, like the kind, yeah, like the standard diet that people eat in the UK. And when they come to me and they say, I don't know anything about keto, but someone said you should do my macros, I won't do them for them, because they need to first go away, do a little bit of time in the group. And I say the first three things you need to do is you need to eliminate all grains. Every bit of grain from your diet needs to go, including rice, corn, and oats, because they are also not always gluten free. There is a strand of gluten that is in oats. Even though they say it's gluten free, it's still a kind of gluten, but it's not the same one found in barley, wheat, and rye. So, and it's also found, so it's found in oats. So even when they say gluten-free oats on the packet, there's
Mm.
still a strain of gluten, but what they're pointing out is it's not wheat gluten in there. So, and that's the only reason that they're gluten-free, is because gluten-free oats are grown in a field away from other grains. And because the wind blows when you're harvesting, Crop rotation as well. You don't grow the same crops on the same land. So to be certified as gluten-free, they need to be specially out of the way. The machines that get used are not ones that are used to process grains. That's the only reason they say gluten-free.
Right, yeah.
So, but there's still a strain of gluten that can damage. So you've got to get rid of all of those things from your diet. You've also got to get rid of all kinds of sugar as well. Even natural sugars like honey and stuff like that is also gone. Coconut sugar, those kind of things are gone as well. They're still processed. You need to get rid of them. And then the seed oils, obviously. And once you get rid of those three things, the trio of killers. Then you do that for a month. And I say to people, even if you are eating, like I said, baked potatoes, parsnips, carrots, beetroot, sweet potatoes, things that I definitely don't consider keto, and even if you're eating those kinds of things, just go back and eat meat, vegetables, a little bit of fruit, a little bit of nuts, and small amounts of dairy. If you eat those, then come back to me and we'll start talking macros to go keto.
Yeah. And it's crazy, when you think about it, when you think about how our ancestors lived, say, for instance, and they would have survived on, they would have been looking mainly for getting protein, because something in their bodies would have told them, when I eat this food, I feel good. I feel like I can get through my day, sort of thing. Whereas in the modern world, we've almost become conditioned into being frightened of eating too much protein, and definitely frightened of eating too much fat. And, all your protein should be lean and whatever. And it's just awful. And it does take that, like I was saying before, that change of mindset into thinking, well, actually, I'm actually okay eating lots of protein. And do you find people do struggle with that, with sort of seeing how, once they get into keto, maybe wanting to try carnivore, but thinking, well, I just don't think carnivore could work for me because all that meat, it can't be good for you.
Yeah. So the first thing that I noticed as well when I was started doing people's macros is especially women, they were coming to me and they were saying, I've just had my macros done by another group, and these ladies were on 52 grams of protein a day because they were going off their ideal body weight. And I was like, what the?
Thank
I
you.
was like, what?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, who told you to eat your goal weight of protein? No. That's going to kill you. And they're like, what do you? And I said, yeah, you'll lose weight because your body is going to basically, we all know about gluconeogenesis. Yes. Your body is going to take your muscle meat and it is going to eat it. So you're going to lose weight. Yeah. Basically, you're going to cannibalize yourself. Yes. And they're like, I've been eating 52 grams of protein a day because I want to be 52 kilos. And I'm like, this is dangerous. No. This is so dangerous.
No, it's so
I went directly to these people and I said, I don't know what your background of education, even though I'm self-educated in my trade, you've got to stop doing this. And there was this whole kind of like battle between me and these people. And I was like, no, you can't be telling them that. You're going to kill them. Especially because your heart is, although we consider it as an organ, it's actually a muscle. And it's the hardest working muscle in the body. And if that is going to start, cannibalizing itself as well, you're going to end up with a heart attack. So I will not recommend anyone less than 85 grams of protein a day, depending on what you're doing. All right. So high protein is absolutely fine. And we all know that, gluconeogenesis is not going to turn your protein into cake in your veins. Your body's not going to do that. So what happens with protein is your body converts it to the amino acids. It gets sent around your body. And what doesn't get used, pretty much you just urinate out or you sweat out. So that's it at the end of the day. That's why it's essential to get your protein every single day. And people don't understand when they look at how many, they come back to me and they say, you've told me that I can only eat 90 grams of protein in a day. But that's not even one chicken breast. And I'm like, look, you need to look at it differently. So 100 grams of chicken It's not 100 grams of protein.
No.
It's 29 grams of
Yeah.
protein.
Mm.
So, and then I have to explain that to him as well, that how it's made up of other things as well. So yeah, loads of people struggle with protein. So once it's explained to them how it all works, then they get there bit by bit. But yeah, when people go carnivore, they think, I can't have that much protein. That's got to be bad for me. But
Yeah.
it's not. And
Mm,
there's so many
mm.
people as well. There's so many doctors as well that are saying that like if you eat too much protein, you end up with bad kidneys and kidney stones, and it's ridiculous,
Yeah,
you know. So
it
we all know
is.
that kidney
Yeah,
stones and
definitely.
from oxalates and things like that. So
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
so, but yeah,
Yeah, totally.
protein and
And
fat.
and I think the only reason why some people struggle to eat more protein is quite simply because their gut health has been so compromised
Exactly.
over the years from eating a lot of the processed foods, or too many I'd say just too many vegetables,
Yeah.
that their gut health is compromised. So it might take some time for them to
Yes.
slowly build up, and just increasing the protein every day or every other day, and
Yeah.
until you can build it up. But I always say, sort of, if you're coming from a background of processed food, and you maybe want to be looking at about 1.2 grams per kilogram of
Yes, about
body
that. Yeah.
weight, but your goal should be 1.8 and even more than that, per gram per kilogram of body weight. Not as you say, I totally
Yeah.
agree with you. I think it has to be per kilogram of body weight, because that really depends, that your body needs that. Your body
Yeah.
absolutely needs that amount of protein. And funnily enough, I've just been doing some research into non-alcoholic fatty liver,
Yeah.
and that's the next video that I'm going to be putting out. And the one food that they're now realizing is the greatest healer for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is protein.
Yeah.
Protein. you know and yet we get all these people on the internet and whatever who are going on and on about, oh well, you need to detox your liver, you need to drink all these fruit juices, the vegetable juices, and actually that's the worst possible thing you could ever do to your liver, because that's just
Yeah.
going to make it fatter.
Yeah.
Whereas people who focus on protein, they can turn around their non-alcoholic fatty liver in as little as 6 days.
Wow.
It's crazy. All these things that we have been told, we can virtually turn everything that we've been told about health on its head,
Yeah.
can't we?
I think it's also really important, and I like to point this out to everybody, is when we are like calculating, or when we're tracking our macros and we track our fats and proteins, it's so important to understand that most plant protein isn't as bioavailable as what animal protein is.
Yes.
And I argue with this all the time with vegans, and they say, but that is what it says on the back of the packet. And I'm like, but first of all, hey, it's not bioavailable. We can't, like that there's contains fiber in that product, so in that, or whatever, in that vegetable, so that's going to have contain the protein in it as well. We're going to excrete that protein out. The bioavailability, we're not going to be getting all of those nutrients, all of those vitamins and minerals. So although I still eat vegetables occasionally, I eat them quite often at the
Yeah.
moment, because I eat when I fancy them. If you really, really, really look at it, then carnivore, because we have a stomach acidity that is so high, the pH is so low. Our stomach is almost the same as a vulture. So it's carnian or canian animals we are. So we can digest and raw meat easier than we can cooked meat and vegetables.
Yeah.
So I always eat a raw meat meal in a day. So I'll have steak tartare or beef carpaccio or raw liver or something every single day. There won't be a day, but I also have cooked meat as well. So I mix it
Yeah.
up. And
Yes.
fats as well. When we talk about fat, it's animal fats as well that are going to be better for us. And I know that
Absolutely.
avocado oil, coconut oil, and olive oil are still okay. They are still oils they're plant oils, although they're not these bad seed oils. They still come from plants. We really want to be focusing on our animal products first, and then add
Yes.
these vegetables in later on. And although they still calculate towards your macros anyway, if you are relying on avocados or olives or those kinds of oils for your fat intake, then you are not going to be getting, you're not going to be getting that fat intake that you need. You need animal fats, predominantly animal protein and animal
Yes,
fats. That's so important.
absolutely. Yes, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think the fat from an animal is in the quantities that our bodies are on a biological level are used
Yeah,
to. I mean, how many avocados have you got to squeeze to get a tiny bit of oil out of them? You know, it is
exactly. I mean, yeah, they talk about, without talking about nutrition, they talk about, like the carbon footprint of everything, and people turn around and say, this is a big thing at the moment as well. Things like Piers Morgan is pointing this out as well, that where do you get your almonds and your avocados from? They come from California, or they come from Peru, or something like that.
yeah.
And I'll never forget, like when I was in the shop a few years ago back in the UK in 2018, I think it was, just before COVID hit. And there was a guy that was saying to his wife, yeah, get best of British steak, brilliant, fantastic. And I was listening, I was like, yeah, that's good. And then he said, and pick up some strawberries and some asparagus as well. And I was like, dude, it's February,
Yeah,
and I'm like, good for you that you're eating British beef.
yeah.
But,
But
these kind of
yeah,
out of season things
yes.
that come from halfway across the world, you
Mm,
know, if you are a hunter gatherer, then you're going to be eating what is in traveling distance
what's
within the
in
last
season?
a couple of days
Exactly.
and in
Yes.
season. So
Yes,
if you're going to
yes.
be, and that's when the bioavailability becomes important as well. And yes, you can still get nutrients, vitamins, and minerals from plants. Of course, you can get some, not optimal amounts, but yeah, you're right. How many avocados have got to be flown over to,
Exactly.
or to
Yeah.
make this oil, or where does your oil
Yes.
come from? It
Yes.
doesn't come from the UK if you
No.
live in the UK. So eat local
Eat
beef tallow.
locally. Yeah.
Even if it's produced in the Highlands of Scotland and you live in, like Southampton or Portsmouth, it's still, in my opinion, that's local.
Yes.
That's good
Yes.
enough. And what drives me crazy about the UK is the UK, with the amount of land that it's got, could be completely sustainable on its own. It doesn't need anything from outside.
Absolutely.
It doesn't need anything from outside anywhere in the world. It's got enough land on there to raise meat. It's got enough land in there to grow vegetables. And you can fish. What more do you need?
Yeah, I know exactly. You're absolutely correct there. I mean,
Yeah,
we should, with the amount of land we have, we should be able to be completely
yeah,
self-supportive, really, shouldn't we?
yeah,
When from a food point of view, I agree.
yeah,
And just going back a second, I mean, I do think, I'm sure there might be a way of being a vegan and being healthy, but it would take so much planning and so I don't know, down to the most finite detail.
yeah.
Just for God's sake, just go and eat a steak. It's quicker. It's
I
quicker.
mean,
It's less hassle,
it
surely.
is. I mean, there was a guy. There was a guy in my CrossFit gym, and he was a vegan, and he was a nice guy. Although I don't get on with many vegans, there is this guy, and we were talking, and we were actually finding some common ground, where him and his girlfriend were both vegan. He was very fit, but he supplemented with some things. But he was like a whole foods vegan against his wife or girlfriend that would have spaghetti and ketchup. And he hated that. And he
Mm,
said that these are the worst kinds of vegans that you can get. And
mm,
he openly admitted that sometimes he would also have eggs because he knew that he couldn't get it. So he wasn't fully vegan, but like the majority of it. And yeah, like although I disagree completely with vegan, fruitarian kind of diets, he was doing it the right way, if there is a right way.
yeah, yeah.
And she was doing it, and she came to the gym and she trained when I was coaching there one day, and she could barely lift a 1 kilo weight in each hand. And I'm talking like she was doing like these lat raises.
Yeah.
And my 9-year-old comes along, and he eats so much meat, my 9-year-old, and I think he was 7 at the time. But he's picking up these weights, these 4 or 5 kilo weights, and he's throwing them around the place. And she's over there, and she's like, "I can't do this with weight on." I'm like,
It's crazy. It's crazy to me that people think a vegan diet is sustainable and then will argue that a keto or carnivore diet isn't sustainable.
It's just sad. It makes
I
me
mean,
sad.
it's just crazy. It's just
Yeah,
crazy. And I always think, well, sort of somebody who comes from a processed food background will say, yeah, but keto, it's not sustainable. And I go, yeah, well, by the time you've unpacked your pizza, put the oven on and cooked your pizza, I've cooked and eaten a steak and 4 eggs.
yeah,
I've actually done it all, and I don't need to think about food after that. You'll be
yeah,
half an hour later, you're going to be thinking about, oh, I'm hungry again. I'm not going to
yeah,
be hungry for hours.
yeah.
It's just so much more
Or they'll be
sustainable.
asleep.
Or
They'll
they'll
be
be
asleep
asleep,
because they've
or
had
they'll
too
be
many carbs.
asleep.
They'll be
Yes,
asleep on the sofa, and you'll be running around doing crazy stuff.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. That very true, very true. So just moving on a second now to
Yeah,
the business that you have built up over the years. So you've got your coaching business, and you're also doing cookery stuff as well. So tell me how you got
yeah.
into doing this live cookery tutorials.
Well, the guy that lived across the road from me when I was younger, who I used to pester all the time because he had an interesting traveling background, he used to be the head chef for the Sultan of Brunei. And he has, he's a phenomenal chef. And he would teach me from an early age the importance of different ingredients. And we would make bread together and he would barbecue. He also used to be the head of the World Barbecue Association. And so we would barbecue together, we would make fresh bread together. My parents would say, leave Jeremy alone, but I would be over there all the time. And even we used to drink some wine together when I was, about 15 or 16 as well. And, the good ingredients in the world. And so I kind of learned to cook at an early age, but I also, alongside of this, when I lived in the UK, I had a job in what was the trend in those days was a gastro pub, and it was actually run by Anthony Royal Thompson,
Wow.
who the guy from Ready Steady Cook.
Mm.
And although he wasn't cooking there, he was the silent partner and he would be there as well. So I was always interested in cooking, and he would also give me some tips and we would talk a lot. And between the two of them, I really gained a lot of knowledge about food and cooking in general. And then I would just try it out. And when I joined the army, my wife was very much, because she was at home, she was very much the cook. She loved baking
Mm.
and cooking. And then when I left, I was the one that was cooking. And I just bettered myself through cooking. And obviously, then I got in contact with my friend Jeremy again. And he would send me ideas and tutorials and talk. And I thought, you know, food is the foundation, of health. So if you can't cook and you can't, make the best of these ingredients, you can't be healthy because it's going to be boring and you're going to fail. So I would just learn these skills and just watch YouTube videos. And then I ended up cooking more and more and more. And then I said to Jeremy, I was like, look, Jeremy, I have a skill level now that you can't call me a chef, but I want to say, I'm not a home cook. And he came up with this. He says, you're a cuisinier. And I said, what's a cuisinier? And he said, it's a very pretentious word for home chef or home cook. And I was like, right, okay, we'll stick with that. So so we started doing these cooking videos on YouTube and things like that. And then my kids were getting involved, and they love cooking as well. So then I wrote a Christmas book, and if my children can make the meals, then anyone can. So I get a recipe, I try it out, I do it myself, and then I say normally to my daughter, because she's brilliant, I say, right, you've got to go and cook that now. If you can cook that, if you can follow the recipe, then anyone can do it, because you were 13, 14, she's 15 now, and she doesn't do it so much for me anymore. But if my kids can do it and they can help me along with it, then cooking's easy. So we just get into it. It also brings the family together as well. My children go to a boarding school in the next city, Munster, and when they come back on the weekends, I look forward to them coming back. And sometimes I say, right, what would you like for dinner on Fridays? Or shall we cook it together? and their friends come over, we make fathead pizza, or we, make a curry together or something like that, and they really get involved. Normally, my wife and my eldest son don't get involved because they want to. My eldest son isn't that interested in cooking with everybody. He does it himself, and my wife, she has a hard week as an engineer, so she needs time to relax. So me, my daughter, and my youngest, they're the guys that you'll see on the YouTube videos as well. So they get in amongst it. It's just a great thing to do together as well.
Brilliant, lovely.
And you can teach, you can teach them from an early age as well. You can be there teaching them how to cook, because it's the basic of skills that everybody needs. So if you bring your children up eating good stuff, and you can explain to them, you can say, hey, we're making fathead dough and not, or we're making chicken-based pizza. My son loves chicken-based pizza. So we're making this because gluten is bad for you. And then you can explain to them and bore the socks off of them on knowing this. But if you tell them every time, then you're educating your children as well. And my son is very, very clever. He's 9 years old, and he'll tell you pretty much down to what I like every single keto fruit or vegetable, or anything. So he knows it.
Brilliant. And I think with family life now revolves so much around not cooking, just heating up food, doesn't it, really? That being able to cook, I think, is such a wonderful skill for children to have, and to see their parents doing it, because it just normalizes it, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I always remember back when we used to go around for a Sunday lunch to my grandparents' house, and my granddad was a cow farmer, and he lived next door pretty much to the farm. Like, there was my grandparents' house and the graveyard, then there was the farm. And he used to go, right, Kev, go and get the milk. And I would go and get the milk and milk the cows, and we would come back with the cow milk. And he'd be like, right, where is it? And I'd have this big ring of milk around my mouth. And I'm like, I've drunk it, Granddad, it's gone. So, but then my granny she would make liver, and I hated tripe when I was younger, and I still don't like it now. But that's what we would eat. And we would eat all of these things. And I would watch my granny cook, and and help my granddad around the farm and stuff like that. And that's what was just normal for us, and I loved it. And nowadays, families, they go, what do you want for dinner? Or they don't even say, what do you want for dinner? They just say, right, there's your sandwich, there's your packet of crisps open, there's your segmented apple or orange or whatever, and then they sit in front of a TV or on an iPad. And it's like, that is just ruining your child's life. Get them in the kitchen, get them cooking, get them learning. Because I will also remember, I was very much, or I still enjoy watching River Cottage as well. So with Hugh Fernie-Whittingstall, because he's brilliant, the way he came. And he said that one of the girls or something, one of their children, thought chickens had 5 wings, because that's the pack of chicken wings came in a pack of 5. And I was like, that's so detached from reality that you have to. My children, they have slaughtered rabbits, they've skinned rabbits, even I think my oldest 2 were 7 or 8 when they were skinning rabbits, when we had them in the garden and stuff like that, and making. So they know it. They know where it comes from. They know how to hunt. They know how to catch these things, and they know how to skin them. They know how to cook them, and these things are life skills that
absolutely,
so,
absolutely. Yeah, I agree. And do you know what? I don't think there's ever been a time in history where we would, as a species, be less able to fend for ourselves if anything went wrong.
If anything happens, if the button gets pressed,
Exactly. If anything happened, if we couldn't, turn the oven on or something, if we had to fend for ourselves, I just don't think we would survive. I honestly don't, because I think these skills that you're talking about, people just don't have them anymore.
Yeah. I mean, me and my wife, we even though we grew up in completely different countries, right? The funny thing about us is we are so similar in every aspect. And we were even on holiday in Mallorca on the same year together. And I was like, no way were you there the same year. And she went to these caves of Drac the same time that I did. So we might have even walked past each other, which I think is amazing.
Wow.
But anyway, so we and she would make fire when she was younger, and I would make fire when I was younger. And so many people, like today, they're like, "Oh, don't make fire! What are you doing to your child?" And I'm like, "Yeah, go and set fire to everything in the world, all right? Not in the woods, like make it controlled and stuff like that. Just be careful."
Yeah.
But yeah, so we would make fire when we were younger, and people, they don't even know how to start a fire these days.
No, I know.
Like, how are you going to cook if things go
Yeah, I
wrong?
know. It's crazy, isn't it? I know it is. It's crazy. Um, so just moving on a second now. So can you just share with us maybe some of your favorite meals? What would you maybe eat in a day?
At the moment, I'm going down because we go to the shop almost every day, so that the meat that we get is super fresh. We go to the butcher, and we pick up some beef. Whatever beef is on offer or the cheapest at the time, we will get, because we buy high welfare,
Mm.
and so we get like whatever, I think it's like I don't know, 115 or 16 euros a kilo for trying to think what the English word is now. It's like the back part, the rump,
A rump,
So
yeah.
we get that, and so I'll come back, and we will have we'll have that for dinner. So I'll make it raw at the moment. So I'm eating like a lot of raw because the weather is warm. So I'm having raw steak, but I'll have it mixed up with rocket, some sun-dried tomatoes. Even though they're quite high in carbs, they're still it's still within my carb limit because I'm not eating so many.
Mm.
So some sun-dried tomatoes, some pine nuts, a little bit of parmesan. So that kind of a salad at the moment is what I've been eating for the last couple of weeks. A
Yeah.
little bit of olive oil, mustard dressing, and that's really my favorite at the moment. But I absolutely love curry. So I'll have curry. This is my most favorite. So my go-to at the moment is that, because I'm enjoying it. But like, I'm gonna have a curry tonight. In fact, I said to my wife
Good.
this morning, I'll have a curry tonight.
Yeah.
But I like eating, like spicy food. Like Mexican style food as
Mm.
well. Guacamole with some Edam tacos and that I'll make is my
Nice.
go-to at the moment, with some beef and chili and stuff like that. But it's mostly, I enjoy eating a lot of beef at the moment.
Beef.
A
Yeah.
little bit of raw, like my burgers that I cook, and then whatever vegetables are in season, really. So it
Yeah.
changes year by year. So I'll go and I'll have a look. Okay, so mushrooms are now in season, so I'll
Mm.
have more mushrooms. So it kind of changes all year round.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you can't beat a curry. I love it.
I
It's my
agree
favorite.
with you. We love curry in our house. Absolutely love it. And whether it's chicken curry or beef curry or a lamb curry,
Yeah,
yeah, I just think, it's a staple.
yeah.
It's a
I'd
staple in
love to
our
have. I'd
house.
love to have more lamb, but lamb is so expensive in
Is it
Germany. I don't know
really?
why. Yeah, it's
Mm.
ridiculously priced,
Wow.
and so that is like, if we have lamb, then that is our treat as well. So because
Yeah.
we don't, it's really expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's very we I eat more wild and more game meat than I do lamb, because there's more game meat over here.
Oh,
So I can
right.
go
Yeah.
to the butcher, and I can. But rabbit is mega expensive as well. Like, I love
Oh,
rabbit, but it's really expensive.
yes.
So the differences in food on the continent to what you eat in the UK. So obviously, because rabbits are classed as a pest in England. And my
Yes.
dad goes out with his tutu, and he'll pop a couple of rabbits off, and the farmer's like super happy to have that. And even though I've got my hunting license over in Germany, it's very, very restricted where you can hunt, what you can hunt.
Oh,
It's all like, rabbits have a season over here, and it's very controlled, and I don't like it. And most of the hunters in Germany, they're trophy hunters, so they hunt deer
oh gosh.
for the antlers, and I have no interest in that
Yeah.
as well.
No.
So
Mm.
I like a lot of wild meat as well, but yeah, it's really seasonal what I enjoy.
Right.
But
Yeah.
eggs for breakfast, scrambled eggs,
Mm.
is good. Scrambled eggs, bacon,
Definitely.
cottage cheese as well in amongst there as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's seasonal.
Yeah.
Love
Good. Brilliant. So now I
it.
want you to just tell us about this system, this 4 pillars
Oh yeah.
of health that you've set up. Can you explain what the 4 pillars are?
Yeah, so I go by these, and I've added a few little extras to this afterwards, but that I'm going through at the moment. So the basics of 4 pillars are food, fitness, health, and well-being. And I always say that if you have a platform or a building or a structure or something, it is most stable when it's got these four pillars, these four corners.
Sure.
And if you take one away, sure, that's gonna be fine. It's still gonna stand. You take two away, you're really, really, really it's teetering on the edge. If you take three away, then there's no chance it's gonna be stable. So food is the most important because that's what you fuel your body with. And when you talk to going back to the army as well, you look after your machines in the army. You put the best oil in your cars. You put the best fuel in your car because you want to look after that car. Your body is the most important machine, and why you don't fuel it with the best foods that you can possibly get your hands on is beyond me. So you have to look after your food. Number one, your body image is started in the kitchen. It's not in the gym. It's number one in the kitchen. So that's the most important thing. Fitness is very, very close second. You need to be fit and healthy. You need to be active, getting around. When I look at my mother-in-law, she passed away 2 years ago almost, but she was very, very restricted with her movement. But my grandmother-in-law, so my wife's grandmother, she's 96. She was a physiotherapist, and she would get up in the morning, and although she would still eat this grain-based diet, and she still does, she would do yoga every day, and she would get down on the floor with my children when they were babies and play with them. But my mother-in-law would really have troubles getting up and down, and she wasn't very good with younger children. But my wife's grandmother is fantastic. So fitness is a very important thing. She used to get up in the morning. She does her stretches. She doesn't so much anymore. Sadly she's got dementia and 96, so very restricted. So she gets up, does her yoga in the morning. She takes her walks. I still go. I visit her, in the week, and I take her for a little walk around the garden. Try and encourage her to go barefoot as well, although it's sometimes hard trying to encourage a with dementia to take her shoes off. But, she still gets out there, and so fitness is still mega important. Everyone can do some kind of fitness. There's no excuses to say you can't do anything. Even a guy that I know, or I know of, lost his legs in Afghanistan, and he still does fitness. He still does pull-ups. He still does resistance bands exercises. And you can still do it in a wheelchair. You can still do something. You can get some kind of fitness. If you are limited mobility, you've got to start at the bottom. Get out in the fresh air and take a small walk. That's the step number one. Step number one is going for a walk.
Yes.
And then you've got to look at so food and fitness is done. So then you've got to look at your health. Now, people think that health is the same as food, but it's not. So looking at health, we need to look at food toxins as well. Environmental toxins, toothpastes, hair gels, and things like that are all part of health. It's not just the food. If you are going, I've got this app on my phone that works over it, and you scan the barcode and it tells you what products are in there and if they are a significant concern to your health. So if you are sitting in an office all day and the air quality is really bad, you've got to get some fresh air. That's part of health. So you've got to open a window, create a through breeze. Again, toothpaste, I don't use conventional toothpaste. I use coconut oil or coal to use as a toothpaste, or some like organic toothpaste that I've used. And I'm very concerned about what my children put in their body. Skin creams as well. If I feel that my skin is a little bit dry, use animal fat. Well, there are some good brands out there that make really good products as well. And again, environmental toxins. When you live in a city, you've got to be careful what you put your food in and stuff like that. I see as well here in Germany some IKEA boxes that say do not use for food, and they're putting food in it, open bags of food, stuff like that, and people are taking them round, and it's like, what are you doing? So health is very much those kinds of things as well. Looking at oxalates, lectins, all these things that we need to consider. There's a whole array of health toxins out there. If you want to really take a look at your metabolic health, and you really can go carnivore, then go directly to carnivore and then add these vegetables and fruits into your diet bit by bit and see your reaction to your body. That's health as well. So you may get kidney stones from eating too many oxalates. Spinach is the devil, even though it's low carb and keto, and people say spinach is great. And I'm going to make a spinach smoothie. I'm like, it's full of oxalates. That's really bad for your kidneys. It's really bad. It forms crystals and they can pop out all sorts of parts of your body. So that's health. And then well-being is really important as well. Looking after yourself. And it's not selfish, it's selfless. Because if, as a parent as well, because I'm very family orientated, if you don't look after your own body, then how can you look after your child's body as well? So how can you make sure that your children are healthy? And again, it's like going out and grounding. It's looking into red light therapy, cold showers, cold plunges, meditation, yoga. These kinds of things are so important. Blue light ray, like blue blockers, grounding sheets, all these kinds of things that can help us and help our well-being are really important. And again, don't just do it yourself. You have to do it for your children as well. So if you're eating a keto diet, but you're feeding your children gluten and pizza and convenience foods, then you need to really take a look, and that's being selfish. You need to be selfless. So that's part of your well-being, and help your children. Like I send my son, right, going for a bath now, and he says, can I come out the bath? And I'll say, are you clean? And he'll say, yeah. And I'll say, right, you can stay for another 20 minutes or 10 minutes and just lie and relax. Go for a bath. You have to have that me time as well. And it's important for your wellness, to be like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know of anybody who doesn't want to have a better work-life balance. And I think what you've outlined there is exactly the way to go about that. To have those various aspects and to be able to bring something of those into each and every day. And it doesn't have to be, even if people who are tight on time, there's always something that you can do to bring into your day which is going to make it more balanced. And you're quite right, the more balanced your life is, the easier it is for you to help the loved ones around you to get a more balanced life.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you can't look after yourself, then
Exactly. So I think we've talked through so much today, and I feel like we probably need to draw this to a close now. We've been talking for quite a long time, but I'm just so grateful for you taking the time to talk to me today and sharing all this knowledge that you have with us as well, because I think it's been really insightful and so useful, and things that people can bring into their everyday life. So just as a last question, sort of, if somebody was looking to make a change in their life, what, out of those 4 pillars, where is the best place to start, do you think?
Well, you definitely got to start with the food. So like I said, if you can reduce those 3 things, like the gluten, the sugar and the processed oils, that's number 1. Move on to whole foods, and then slowly start to reduce your carbohydrates. And so that's the number 1 thing is food. You've got to fuel your body with the best that you can get. And I know that it's really expensive, but if you can eat organic, start off with eggs, because the poultry industry in Europe, the UK and Europe, is diabolical. Move away and eat at least organic eggs and chicken, and then go up to pork, organic, and then go into beef. But eat as much free range organic whole foods as you can. And then you can start off fueling your body with the best stuff. And then everything else becomes easy after that.
Brilliant. And just as a last thing then, where can people find you if people want to learn more about the 4 pillars and the cookery which you do?
So you can go onto my website, which is pretty easy. It's just ketokev.com. On the contact page at the back or on the side, it's got all my details for all of my channels, all my Instagram and my Facebook, but everything is just Keto Kev. If you type in Keto Kev to YouTube or Instagram, it will just pop up there. I'm not so active on Twitter. I definitely don't use TikTok, but I'm not a TikTok guy. I'm not a dancer. I'm not anything like that. But yeah, so I've also set up a Patreon page recently. It's just Keto Kev, where I offer just these different packages with recipes and coaching and stuff like that. But like I said, everything is on my webpage, ketokev.com.
That's brilliant. Kev, thank you so much for
Yeah, no
talking
worries.
to me today. It's been wonderful chatting, and yeah, I've had such a good time. Thank you so much. Take
You're very
care.
welcome.
See
Yeah,
you
thanks very
soon.
much for having me. Yeah, see ya.